Have you ever felt like you were drowning in everyone else's noise, their demands, their expectations? Sometimes it seems like being available to everyone, all the time, is the only way to stay connected and relevant. But what if that's the biggest lie you've ever been told? What if the constant need to explain, please, and react is what traps you in cycles of frustration and exhaustion? Here's the hard truth. When you say yes to everything, you're silently saying no to yourself. And the cost: your freedom, your peace, and your chance to discover who you really are. Carl Jung once suggested that every transformation begins with the courage to look inward, to let go of the roles others impose on us and step into our authenticity. It's a radical thought, isn't it? That simply choosing yourself over the noise, choosing silence over endless conflict, could change your life entirely. Contrary to what you've been told, real strength isn't loud. The true power lies in walking away, setting boundaries, and letting others face their own discomfort in your absence. And when you master that silence, everything shifts. What if I told you there's a version of you? A version that commands respect, embodies sovereignty, and moves through life with peace. Waiting on the other side of that noise, the moment you stop reacting, the moment you withdraw, is the moment the game changes. And today, we're diving deep into why walking away is sometimes the most powerful move you'll ever make. Are you ready to discover how silence changes everything? Have you ever noticed how some people seem to command respect without ever saying a word? They don't plead, they don't shout, and yet their very presence shifts the atmosphere. This isn't magic, it's the quiet power of silence and withdrawal. By choosing to step back, they reclaim their control. It's as if the emotional chaos surrounding them dissipates on its own. You can see it with a friend who pauses instead of arguing back, or with someone at work who avoids unnecessary drama. These moments of silence aren't weakness. They're an act of quiet strength. But here's the twist. Choosing absence over constant availability often leaves others unsettled. Why? Because they lose the ability to manipulate your reactions. People are so used to controlling others through predictability that the sudden lack of response creates discomfort. Think about it. How often do you feel the urge to immediately reply to a harsh comment, justify yourself, or jump at the first sign of conflict? Trust me, there's power in breaking that cycle, in simply refusing to be the world's emotional puppet. All it takes is a small pause to change the dynamic entirely. And yet, stepping into this space can feel daunting, almost unnatural, because we've been conditioned to believe that being always available makes us valuable. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Being over-accessible drains your psychic energy, leaving you frustrated and exhausted. What if I told you that embracing this uncomfortable silence is the first step toward finding your authentic self, anchoring your peace, and redefining your worth? We'll explore why that constant availability is not only unnecessary, but a detriment in the next part. From a young age, most of us are taught one dangerous lie: that being available to others all the time makes us lovable. Be nice, always say yes, don't disappoint. Sound familiar? The problem is, the more you try to please people, the more you become a tool for their convenience, rather than someone truly valued. Constant availability doesn't bring you closer to respect. It locks you into a cycle of manipulation and emotional exhaustion. Over time, you stop living for yourself and start living to meet everyone else's expectations, until you hardly recognize your own needs. Think about those moments when you said yes out of obligation rather than desire. What did it cost you? Perhaps your evening peace, your weekend plans, or even your inner strength to stand up for yourself. Being always accessible might make life easier for others, but it drains your energy drop by drop. Tiredness, frustration, and emptiness are the price you pay. And here's the kicker. The more predictable and available you are, the less others appreciate you. The truth stings, doesn't it? But here's the good news. You don't have to live this way. Breaking free from this invisible prison is about reclaiming your time and setting boundaries that protect your vitality. Saying no isn't selfish, it's survival. Imagine how much lighter you'd feel if you stopped responding to every interruption, every draining favor, every guilt-ridden yes. In the next part, we'll dive into why people often exploit this availability and how your reactions can either empower them or disarm them. It's painful to realize, but many people manipulate you without lifting a finger. They simply trigger your reactions. They know your buttons: a well-timed criticism, a guilt-inducing remark, or an intentional silence. all aimed at making you act out of reflex. What's worse, most manipulation happens on autopilot. You might think you're making conscious choices, but in truth, your impulsive reactions hand over control to others. And who taught us this way of living? Carl Jung, the iconic psychologist, referred to this cycle as projection, where others dump their insecurities onto you to distract from their own flaws. Here's an example. Have you ever been blamed for something that clearly wasn't your fault? Maybe someone accused you of being selfish, but deep down, they were projecting their own selfish tendencies onto you. These psychological projections create a toxic loop. You spend precious psychic energy defending yourself, trying to prove your worth, while the manipulator sits back, feeding off your emotional labor. The ironic part, the more you react, the more you reinforce their power over you. It's a trap, but one you don't have to stay in. Breaking free starts with self-awareness. What would happen if, next time, you didn't respond at all? What if you paused instead of reacting, embraced silence, and chose to observe rather than defend? People who thrive on manipulation rely on your availability, your predictability, and your need to explain yourself. Stop giving them that. In the words of Jung, everything that irritates us about others can lead to a better understanding of ourselves. Let that irritation guide you, not toward reacting, but toward identifying and reclaiming your authentic power. As we'll see next, the key to breaking this cycle is setting boundaries that protect your energy and peace. What if I told you that a simple no could change your entire reality? Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no. It's about reclaiming control over your life and protecting your psychic energy. When you establish limits, you send a powerful message. I value myself. It may unsettle people at first. After all, they've grown used to your immediate availability, your willingness to act, respond, and carry their burdens. But here's the thing. The people who truly respect you will also respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, they were likely benefiting from your self-abandonment all along. It's not uncommon to feel guilty or selfish when you start setting these boundaries. You may worry that you're pushing people away or risking relationships altogether. But let's be real. What's the alternative? Constant availability drains your energy, leaves no time for self-care, and robs you of your inner peace. Imagine this. Instead of immediately responding to every call, text, or request, you pause. You take a moment to ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does this serve my well-being? If the answer is no, let silence do the work for you. Remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting yourself. Boundaries may stir up discomfort in others, but that discomfort isn't your responsibility. It's merely a sign that you're breaking patterns that made you overly predictable. As you begin to prioritize yourself, you'll notice a shift. Your absence becomes more meaningful than your constant presence. The silence that once felt strange will evolve into a source of strength. And as we explore further, this transformation comes with a cost, but one that is absolutely worth paying. Transformation isn't easy. It comes at a cost. The moment you choose silence and begin to pull away, you'll face discomfort. There's an odd emptiness in saying no for the first time, or stepping back when you've been the go-to for everyone else's needs. People might accuse you of being distant or selfish. They might even try to guilt you into going back to your old ways. But this discomfort, it's not rejection, it's growth in motion. Every pang of guilt, every fleeting fear of loss is part of the process of regaining your sovereignty and stepping into your authentic self. In those early stages, you'll notice something fascinating. The people who truly care for you will stay, while others, those who thrived on your constant availability, will naturally fade away. This is a gut-wrenching but necessary filtration process. It reveals who appreciates you for who you truly are versus who valued you solely for what you could give, those relationships that crumble under the weight of your silence. They weren't built to withstand your growth anyway. Carl Jung often spoke of individuation as requiring a kind of sacred isolation, where you distance yourself from external noise to rediscover your essence. And this is precisely the stage where true transformation begins. But let's face it, the solidarity of this path isn't always glittering. Moments of solitude can push you to question whether you're doing the right thing. You might miss the familiarity of old dynamics, despite how draining they were. However, if you can endure the initial discomfort and embrace this time of quiet self-reflection, you'll uncover a kind of inner clarity you never thought possible. And as we'll delve into next, learning how to protect your psychic energy becomes the key to keeping your peace intact during this transformation. Carl Jung likened the mind to a system of psychic energy, a finite resource that fuels every thought, emotion, and action. But most people spend this precious energy like it's infinite, pouring it into meaningless battles, toxic relationships, and endless worries. Every time you overreact to a minor criticism, engage in pointless arguments, or try to win over people who don't truly value you, you're draining yourself. And here's the hard truth. Once that energy is gone, it leaves you burned out, fragile, and vulnerable to further manipulation. So, how do you stop wasting your energy? Start small. The next time someone criticizes you, resist the urge to defend yourself. Instead, pause and ask, does this deserve my attention? Or, when a friend pulls you into unnecessary drama, consider whether that's the best use of your time and energy. This isn't about avoiding responsibility, it's about choosing where to invest yourself. Guarding your psychic energy isn't selfish, it's survival. After all, how can you show up fully in life if you're running on empty? Preserving your energy is about more than just saying no. It's about knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away entirely. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you allow every weed in, every toxic thought, every emotional trigger, it will overtake the beauty and strength of what you're trying to grow. By learning to conserve and direct your energy, you create space for clarity, authenticity, and inner peace. And here's where it gets even more profound. This newfound energy fuels your self-sovereignty, allowing you to act deliberately rather than live reactively. Let's uncover how silence, when used intentionally, plays a critical role in this process. True sovereignty begins the moment you realize that your energy is yours to command. No one else, whether it's a partner, a boss, or even family, should dictate how or where you invest it. But reclaiming this control doesn't mean towering over others or shutting the world out. It means choosing your battles wisely and deciding, with purpose, when to engage and when to retreat. Here's something powerful. When you stop reacting impulsively to every emotional trigger, you're no longer a puppet in someone else's drama. Instead, you become the director of your own life. Think about it. How many times have you given someone the satisfaction of seeing you react? A rude comment sparks a heated reply. A subtle jab triggers hours of rumination. And yet, what could you accomplish if you simply observed instead of engaged? This isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about self-mastery. Practicing silence in the face of provocation is like flexing a muscle. It feels awkward at first, even uncomfortable, but over time, it builds a quiet strength that speaks louder than any words ever could. Becoming sovereign over yourself isn't just empowering, it's transformative. When you stop reacting on autopilot, you break the invisible chains others have placed on you. You start making choices that align with your values, rather than swimming in the endless current of other people's projections and expectations. It's worth asking yourself, who would you be if you lived without constantly seeking approval or trying to please? In our next exploration, we'll uncover why stepping away, not in anger, but in intentional silence, shifts how others see you and how you see yourself. When you become less available, something incredible happens. You start to matter more. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But think about it. What's rare is valuable. What's too accessible is taken for granted. When you stop being the person who always says yes, who's always ready to jump in and save the day, people begin to notice your absence. And in that space, they realize something new. You're not someone they can control. You're someone they need to respect. But let's be honest, stepping back isn't easy. At first, your unavailability will confuse and even irritate those who've grown accustomed to your constant presence. They might accuse you of being distant or selfish, but here's the deeper truth. They're not angry at you. They're frustrated because they've lost easy access to what you provided: validation, attention, or emotional comfort. By setting boundaries and protecting your psychic energy, you're breaking cycles of manipulation they didn't even know they were using. And the real kicker, when you stop giving freely, others begin to understand the value of what you once provided. This shift isn't just external, it's deeply internal too. As your energy becomes yours to nurture, you reconnect with your authenticity. With the person you'd forgotten, in the chaos of saying yes to everyone but yourself, you no longer need to prove your worth through availability. Instead, You show it by the selective, meaningful ways you choose to engage. All of this opens the door to something even more profound: the journey toward individuation, a process Carl Jung saw as the key to discovering who you truly are. Carl Jung described individuation as the ultimate human journey, the process of becoming truly whole. But here's something most people don't realize. It requires breaking away from the persona or the social masks we wear to fit in. Each time you try to please others, adjust yourself to their expectations, or keep the peace at your own expense, you're strengthening that mask. The cost: your authenticity. To find out who you really are, you must strip away these layers, even if it means losing the comfort of the familiar or enduring the sting of being misunderstood. This journey toward individuation is not for the faint of heart. As you shed old patterns, you might hear things like, "You've changed," or "You're so distant now," and maybe they're right. You have changed, but that's the point. Growth often involves distancing yourself from the collective, stepping away from relationships or situations that relied on your compliance rather than your true self. Yes, it's uncomfortable, even lonely at times, but this conscious isolation isn't about rejecting others. It's about rediscovering the parts of yourself that got buried under years of trying to meet everyone else's needs. The beauty of this process is that it doesn't just transform how others see you, it also transforms how you see yourself. As you step into this deeper awareness, your internal conflicts begin to quiet, and your inner peace starts to grow. You stop reacting to projections that don't belong to you, and instead, you act with clarity and intention. The challenge, becoming fully authentic, means letting go of the old you that kept everyone comfortable. But the reward: a life where you are respected, not because you fit into anyone's box, but because you're unapologetically yourself. This kind of authenticity sets the stage for a transformation that extends far beyond you. And next, we'll explore what life looks like once you've embraced this change. Life after embracing silence and intentional withdrawal feels like stepping into an entirely new world. A world where you're no longer at the mercy of everyone else's demands or expectations. Instead of being drained by trivial conflicts and endless needs, you now have the space to cultivate meaningful connections and a deeper sense of inner peace. Your lack of availability forces others to reflect on their own behaviors, pushing them to confront the very things they once deflected onto you. But the biggest change: you're no longer looking outward for validation. You're guided by your own values and your newfound freedom. This shift isn't about building walls. It's about establishing clarity. People will notice the force of your amplified presence, not through words, but because your actions come from a place of true authenticity. You're no longer chasing respect. It naturally follows because your energy demands it. Imagine this: instead of draining your morning scrolling through unnecessary social media drama or overthinking every interaction, you invest that same time into practices that fuel growth. Whether it's journaling, meditation, or a simple walk to clear your mind, these small acts of self-care ripple out, fueling a cycle of profound personal transformation. At its core, this process teaches a life-altering truth: you don't owe explanations to anyone. You've mastered the art of conserving your psychic energy and honoring your value. True connections now thrive in depth rather than breadth. Relationships rooted in mutual respect, not emotional dependence. The real question is, are you willing to embrace this change, even at the cost of temporary loneliness? By doing so, you're paving the way to an authentic, sovereign life. And as you step into this newfound strength, the only thing left is to decide how you'll make the most of it. So now you know. The power of silence and intentional withdrawal isn't just about cutting people off or building walls. It's about rebuilding yourself, piece by piece, in a way that aligns with your authenticity and inner peace. The question isn't whether stepping back will cost you something. It will. But what's the alternative? To continue drowning in relationships and expectations that drain your spirit? Or to embrace the discomfort of saying no in order to say a loud, unapologetic yes to yourself? Think about it. What are you still tolerating that's quietly robbing you of your freedom? This journey isn't easy. Growth never is. You'll lose people who thrived on your availability, confront your own internal conflicts, and even question if you're doing the right thing. But here's the secret. On the other side of your discomfort lies a life that's calmer, clearer, and richer. Carl Jung believed that true transformation comes from individuation, And that process starts when you stop betraying yourself to please others. The choice is yours. Will you stay in the noise or step into the power of self-sovereignty? If today's insights spoke to you, don't let this be your last step. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell so you never miss another opportunity to learn, grow, and step deeper into your truth. What's holding you back from creating the life you deserve? Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and let's start a conversation. Your transformation is waiting. Are you ready to take the first step?